And we are back with more sports overview topics for you guys. Episode 158. Here we go on the podcast. Hope everyone's having a good week so far. As the times are getting hotter, depends where you are, and the sports world is getting a slow moving pace, but still good stuff out there in the summer months. We are here to go over mainly UFC news, some baseball, go over the home run derby, the All-Star game, UFC 290, and some more fights thus far that will be going on. Also give my thoughts on some basketball stuff and little news as far as the NFL and football is concerned. But alas, thank you for joining me here on the podcast. Age02 and Love here. Yeah, a little later in the week than expected, but alas, like I said on my review for Collision earlier this week, better late than never. So, alas, here to bring the content for you guys, so let's get into it without further ado. So, to start off, I'm not sure if you can get much better off than this elephant in the room. We were waiting for the announcement. I mean, it just felt inevitable, like it was a fight to make. And at last it is. Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. Yes, that is scheduled for October 28th in Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi, whichever, but alas it is official. It was around for... We felt it was gonna happen one way sooner or later. After seeing Francis have that little altercation, if you want to call it that, with Tyson Fury after Fury's last fight. But, the Gypsy King versus arguably the hardest hitting heavyweights out there. Yeah. Oh, and John Jones is gonna fight Stipe. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But, yeah. That's the other big announcement. Well, last is also official. John Jones, in his first heavyweight title defense after coming back in short fashion in the heavyweight division, to choke out Cyril Gane in short fashion, I tell you. Now, again, a question. I mean, this fight was a fight to make, certainly. And, I mean, obviously, besides Francis, but, John Jones, Stipe, New York, November 11th. I mean, can't get much better than that. But as I said before, talking about the build up towards this fight, again, has me in a little bit of question. Simply because of, well, the unknowns. I said before, Stipe has not fought last time he fought was the rematch versus Francis, in which no fans were in attendance. That's how long ago. It's been 2 years, okay. And with John Jones, he had that layoff prior to his fight with Sour Gain, and that fight didn't even last long. So, you have two guys that are relatively coming in basically on long layoffs that have not been. I mean, Jones really didn't even get tested against Gain, so that's the interesting part about this fight. I think we can honestly say, but yeah, can't wait for this fight. But yeah, there's also one other fight that was made last week that I think flying under the radar because we always, whenever a title fight is made, there's always the question of who's going to be next. That's just how it goes. And, it's Stipe John Jones. Okay, that's plan A of the next title fight for November. Then, next up, who's going to be next in line? Well, this fight's going to be really interesting in the scene because, yes, it's about a 6 or 7. I have the rankings with me right now. Sergey Pavlovich, great for him. He moved up to number 1 slot. So go on him. But UFC 293 in Australia. We're getting Tai Tuivasa, Mr. Shuey versus Alexander Volkov. Number 6 versus number 7. And that is a very interesting fight. Very interesting. Because, of course, we know Volkov had relatively easy work in his last fight versus Alexander Romanov. And Tuivasa, in his last fight, lost in a weird way to the now new number one contender, Sergey Pavlovich. So, gonna be unique because Tuivasa was on that unique trend of fight or unique string of fights. You know, facing, from Greg Hardy to Derek Lewis to Sour Gain, losing that great fight, and now losing to Pavlovich. Curious to see now. He's gotten a little bit of time in between. So, see how he fares against a big test and Drago Alexander Volkov. We shall see. But we might as well, since we're looking at the rankings, might as well judge it as it is. So, as it stands right now, the rankings updated. So, Sergey, number 1. Gain, number 2. He'll, of course, fight. Spivak, who's number 8. That's a critical fight as well, coming up in September. Stipe, now we know he's going to fight the champion, John Jones. Curtis Blades, feels like he's been up in the top 5, top 10 for a while now. But, yeah, he's number 4. Obviously losing to Pavlovich's last fight. Aspinall's 5. 6, 7. Tuivasa, Volkov. Spivak, like I said. Almeida, after that big win over Rosenstrike, up at 9. And 10, round out top 10, Marcin Tybura. So, that's to look out for. But now, UFC 290. UFC 290 was a hell of a card, must say. Saturday night. Started UFC main card. 2 top fights, 2 interesting top fights. How would they shake out? And I was 2 for 5 as far as the main card, if you were listening to my predictions. But yeah, right about nickel, right about hooker, and then it just fell off there. I had questions about Duplessis. I like him, but I just couldn't flip the switch. He proved me wrong. Great for him. And in stopping Whitaker. And he had a little confrontation with the champion, Israel Adesanya, after the fight. And I'm already pumped for that fight. I mean, yeah. Can't wait. Co-main events for the 3rd time. Alexander Pantoja beat Brandon Moreno for the 3rd time. Once on the Ultimate Fighter. Twice now in the UFC main cage. And still, Alexander Volkanovski, which we'll speak more about in a bit, but last he stopped Yair Rodriguez to unify the 145-pound straps, and he continues to build on his legacy as arguably the greatest featherweight in UFC history. Back to start. So, Bo Nickel. So, he faced off against Val Woodburn. It was a fight taken on short notice, less than a week's notice. And Bo Nickel, good local kid. He was swinging, and he certainly showed off. Last fight, he showed off his submission skills. This fight, he got a knockout of Val Woodburn, and he obviously has room to grow. There's no dispute with Bo. But the fact is, he's getting accustomed with the environment, getting accustomed with the crowd. And so far, he's 2-0 in the UFC. And kudos to him. Hopefully, he can keep it going. It was a fun way to open the main card. Dan Hooker. If there was one guy I was absolutely thrilled to see win on the main card, besides Nickel, it was definitely Hooker. I mean, I tell you, so odd, I think, I mean, as I mentioned, when he was on that surge of momentum in the division, and then he got that big fight versus Dustin Poirier, but came on the losing end. And then since that fight, he's been relatively up and down. He went down to 145. That didn't pan out. Now he's back at 155 and took on a stud prospect in Jalen Turner, and he certainly put on a show. And there's no dispute Dan Hooker's hard. I mean, he broke his arm and broke his overall both in that fight, and his hair was pink by the end. I mean, gee, but a guy that can take a head kick for lunch, and well, he didn't really have it for lunch. He had adversity, but then ultimately come back to take the next 2 rounds. I tell you, Very good on his part, and happy for Dan Hooker. Now, hopefully this awards him a top 10 fight, and hopefully he's not out for long. Because, I mean, there's a few fights that certainly are intriguing for him around the top 10. I mean, you got Dos Anjos, you got Rafael Fiziev, certainly. Obviously, you gotta wait on that Poirier versus Justin Gaethje rematch. It's next month, but I mean, you got certainly a roundabout of foes at 155 to go around. We'll see. And then Dricus Du Plessis. He certainly got a guy certainly got done. He certainly answered some critics, I'd say. But I mean, certainly a standout performance. To see stopping Robert Whittaker in the second round, was hard to deny him. I think we can honestly say. I mean, in his last fight, stopping Brunson at the buzzer, and now stopping Whittaker. I mean, the dude's a stud. The dude's a specimen. He called out his skeptics after the fight. He said he's got cardio. And, he certainly shut up some people. And he's shown he has power. And, yeah. I mean, this is what Adesanya wanted. Now he's got it. He said he hopes Du Plessis beats Whittaker. He had a good amount of words. Not exactly the best words, but he had some words for Plessis after. Yeah, I'm pumped for his fight, certainly. I mean, Adesanya, we know how dangerous he is. I mean, now, but Plessis showing he has power, and now I don't see Adesanya and Plessis both have something in common. The common denominator: stopping Robert Whittaker. And this fight's going to be intriguing. That's all I have to say, pretty much. And then the co-main event, Alexander Pantoja. And no, I haven't skipped it. I'll get to it after the main event. But, yeah, so Alexander Pantoja beat Brandon Moreno for the third time in a split decision. And he's the new UFC flyweight champion. It seemed like forever, honestly, that flyweight division was, not given respect. But, I mean, it's hard to deny. I mean, after that foursome of fights between Figueroa and Brendan Moreno, now Brendan Moreno versus Alexander Pantoja, keep bringing these solid fights, these solid fighters to this division that will continue to build its respect. And I like to see, yes, these are smaller guys, but, better fighters, better fights, better division. So, keep it going. Volkanovski, I mean, what else can we say? Finishing Yair in the third round, just class act. I mean, just not really words. I mean, there's thought for a sec that maybe Yair had what it took to beat Volkanovski, but that was not the case here. Credit to Volkanovski. The UFC featherweight division has had some great champions. Some great long champions that we can appreciate. Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski. All due respect to Conor, yes, he's a former champion, but he wasn't a long champion. Long defending champion. Think we can agree. But alas, although, he was just inducted, the other day into the Hall of Fame. And he really kicked in the door for the featherweights of the UFC. Yes, the division, because it was just breaking in, wasn't as good as it is now with who's in it. But, him breaking down the door and really started this long reign he had as UFC champion. I mean, it's just hard to deny him the whole. And he did have a good little run at bantamweight for a bit, but Aldo and then Max, I mean, the win streak he was on, and now he's still on a win streak. He's on a win streak. I mean, the only guy that has beaten Max really in a long time, like a decade almost, is Alexander Volkanovski. And he's beat him 3 times. You can say what you want about the decisions on both the first 2 fights, but the reality is, it's how he says, he beat him 3 times. And the fact that Volkanovski is not lost in the division in the UFC, I mean, it's just hard to deny what he's done. He's beaten Aldo. He's beaten Max 3 times, as I mentioned. He's beaten Korean Zombie. He's beaten Brian Ortega. I mean, beat Yair, who people thought, including me, thought had what it takes to possibly beat him. He beat Chad Mendes. He beat Darren Elkins. I mean, he's been a who's who in the UFC. And, you know, I mean, who knows what's next for him? I mean, he could totally just drop that title, go up to 155. He even said after the fight he wants that strap. He wants another shot. So we'll see. But now Yuri Taporia, sorry if I butchered your name, but coming off a very good performance against Josh Emmett in his last fight, and they had a little war of words after. We'll see. I mean, he's very confident, obviously. You know, it's a high price to go after the great Alexander Volkanovski. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, Max. Anyway, no, I didn't forget. I just wanted to space it a little bit because he is one of my favorites. He is one of all of our favorites ever. He was in my favorite fight up to date, which I'll continue to watch back the highlights of over and over again because it was just a classic. Had what you wanted, all of what you wanted in that fight. And I'm talking about Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler, the ruthless one. Won decisively, went out in the right way. Knocking out Nico Price in under a minute in the main event of the prelims. I mean, showed you why you loved Robbie Lawler in the first place. Now, the only fight I unfortunately ever saw from Robbie's first run was in the UFC was against Nick Diaz the first time. And then obviously he went away for a bit, you know, and then came back in a second stint and tore up. I mean, had few finishes right off the bat, you know. He beat Rory McDonald in their first fight. It was a good first fight on route 2, facing Johnny Hendricks for the vacant UFC welterweight title that George gave up. And it was a classic. It was a very good, hard-hitting 5-round fight in which Johnny Hendricks took the reins, took the strap, got it done. But Robbie Lawler's journey back to the title, another title shot, nothing short of stellar. I mean, coming back just a couple months later to stop Jake Ellenberger, who had a good amount of momentum in his own right leading up to the fight, and he took out his frustrations really from that loss to get done in that fight. And he kept going. He wound up in a classic, another brawl being Matt Brown, and a heck of a fight as well, winning that decision to ultimately face Johnny Hendricks again, and wound up winning the title in a split decision and reached the mountaintop. And was a heck of a moment for Robbie Lawler. After his years, and got it done. Then came my favorite, the Rory McDonald rematch. UFC 189. I mean, can basically give me goosebumps just talking about this fight. I mean, the history of the first fight being close. And Rory McDonald, two guys that are basically almost or in their prime. And it was a heck of a fight. I mean, for, from Robbie breaking Rory's nose to Rory coming back with a head kick, having Robbie hurt not once but twice, taking back rounds 3 and 4, and both are bloody. Robbie was missing part of his cheek or part of his lip. Just hearing back to those words of Firas Zahabi in that fight, going into the 5th round, telling Rory 5 minutes and you win, as Rory's nose is busted open, broken. Just that visual, both of them. Instead of ultimately Robbie, stopping Rory McDonald and getting the victory. I mean, it's just a fight that may never be topped in my eyes. I mean, it had everything, history, and blood, back and forth. I mean, great fight. I mean, back and forth. Great announcing. You know, Mike Goldberg and Joe Rogan also made that fight. I mean, just all the respect to the commentary team now, but I just don't think that fight would be as good with the commentary team now at the UFC. That just had everything in it. So then, after that fight, where does Robbie go? He faces a game Carlos Condit in what was another very good fight where both had their moments, and it was a 5-round decision that ultimately Robbie won a split decision, and Robbie got it done again in the fight, trial by fire, and he got it done. And it came all crashing down in one fatal swoop. When he got knocked out, finished by Tyron Woodley, UFC 201. Yeah. But yeah. Since then, I mean, really, Robbie, I mean, just up and down after that. I mean, he did beat Don Cerrone in what was kind of a dream fight as well. But I mean, really just couldn't capture momentum after the fight. I mean, lost to Dos Anjos, lost to Askren, lost to Kobe. Did beat Nick Diaz and was kind of a firefight. But I mean, really after in the rematch. But I mean, really after that, it was kind of hard to capture that momentum. But Robbie just such a stud, and just really great. Definitely glad to see he went on the right foot. I think we can all agree. So, good for Robbie. Thank you for the memories, and the highlight package and video package they basically gave him right after in his Octagon interview. That was great to see. That was great to see. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. 16 years after Senior got it done. Guerrero Jr. followed in the footsteps and got it done. I mean, now the home run derby felt kind of. I'm going to be kind of real. With all due respect, with the injuries there in Judge and, you know, Mike Trout, it did feel a little lack of star power. I think we could say, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, we have we had great players in the home run derby. You know, with Rodriguez, Ronza, Mookie Betts, Alonso. But I mean, yeah, it was a bit of surprise, but nonetheless, go over as a whole. And go over round for round. Let's get it done. So, starting off in the first round. So, for starters, it wasn't close. As Vladimir Guerrero beat Mookie Betts of the Dodgers 26-11 to advance the semis. Then to follow that up, we had in a rematch of last year. We had the polar bear Pete Alonso versus Julio Rodriguez in his second year and 2 years in a row. Rodriguez eliminates the polar bear as it was 41-21. Now on the other side, it was great to see Rutschman be in the Derby representing the Baltimore Orioles, he and the Orioles are having a under the radar. They are a team to watch out for potentially come the fall. I mean, the Baltimore Orioles are. They may just be my sleeper in that conference. I mean, to ultimately make it to the World Series. I mean, they're just a fun team to watch. But unfortunately, it came down to a close one, losing to Luis Robert Jr. From the White Sox by 28-27. Robert over Rutschman. And then a kind of close one between Alex Garcia and Randy Arozena of the Devil Rays versus Garcia, the Rangers, 24-17. And then semis, it was Robert versus Arozena And Rodriguez versus Guerrero. Guerrero inked it out against Rodriguez. 21-20 home runs, and the fellow got it done. Wow. Arizona blew past Robert 35-22. The finals were set. Arizona versus Guerrero, the Devil Rays versus Tempe Rays, whichever you want to say. The Rays versus the Blue Jays, and ultimately it was the Blue Jays guy that got it done. 25-23. Guerrero got it done. Great. I mean, he's kind of fallen under the radar, obviously. But yeah. So yeah, good for him. Good for the Blue Jays. Yeah. And then the All-Star game. The NBA All-Star game. Or MLB, excuse me. Down a couple studs, like I said. But it was the ALCS that ultimately got done. Or National League, excuse me. Won 3-2 over the American League. Elias Diaz of the Rockies. They were down. They were down 2-1, and Diaz hit the go-ahead two-way winner to get it done. And yeah, good for him. I tell you, as a Mets fan, it feels harsh as, you're reminded of Edwin Diaz, who, of course, who knows that the reliever for the Mets, who unfortunately got hurt, and yeah, before the season, so yeah. But yeah, so good for Diaz and good for Guerrero. A little bit of football news now to go over. Got something for you guys, but so Brandon Shelley, you knew someone else of the probably more to come from the Birmingham Stallions, the reigning two-time USFL champions. But the Dallas Cowboys, who have been humming around all offseason, finding a possible new kicker, may have found their new guy as they picked up Stallions kicker Brandon Shelley, who had a very good season with the Stallions, had 14 out of 15 field goals and kicked all of his extra points. So, kudos for him there. But yeah, Alvin Kamara, say what you may, he will not face jail time for that decision, that incident around Pro Bowl weekend in Las Vegas. So they don't have that distraction around New Orleans. So that's for them. And now I can focus, it seems, on football season after completing his community service and whatnot. What I thought was going to be made official is now official. The New York Jets will be on Hard Knocks for the 2023 NFL season. Certainly a buzz now. Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson, the young kids on that team, certainly something to look out for. So, we'll see. So, yeah. I'll also say that the Trailblazers' asking price for Damian Lillard may be a bit too much. I will say that. But anyways, guys, again, better late than never. But had you guys here for episode 158. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, go over mainly fight news. Talk about World Series, or excuse me, the All-Star Game, Home Run Derby. Yeah, I'd say it was a good episode, but alas, guys like this video, you guys know the drill. Leave a like, leave a thumbs up. The video and the channel help out. But alas, thank you guys. See you guys next time, next week. But adios. See you guys. Subscribe as well. You guys can find it. Peace.